Welcome to the El Dorado County District 1 Supervisor Candidates Forum. My name is Elizabeth Leslie, and I'm here representing the League of Women Voters of El Dorado County. Tonight, we have the opportunity to talk to the two candidates running for District 1 Board of Supervisors. We have with us tonight Ron Briggs and John Hydal. Again, my name is Elizabeth, and also here tonight is Andrew Muse-Fisher, who will be doing the timing for tonight's forum. The rules are as follows. There will be 2 minutes for opening statements from our candidates, 1.5 minutes to respond to questions, and 1 minute for closing statements. For the order, the candidates will answer questions in alphabetical order by last name, and then we will rotate. Candidates will not refer to other candidates or their qualifications or involve themselves in any type of personal attacks. We will mute you if you go over the time, and if you violate the rules several times, you will be removed from the forum. Also, a little bit of information about voting in this election. Every registered voter in California will receive a vote-by-mail ballot. You can still register to vote now. You can do it online at registertovote.ca.gov. When you get your ballot in the mail, you may drop it off at a vote center or your elections office, or you may mail it. It does not require postage. Also, as long as it's postmarked by November 3rd, it has 17 days to arrive at the elections office to be counted. If you have any questions about your vote-by-mail ballot or your registration, please contact the El Dorado County Office of Elections at 530-621-7480. For more information about how to vote, where to vote, and what's on your ballot, including information about these candidates, please visit our online nonpartisan guide, votersedge.org. Okay, let's get started. It's time to begin. We will start the opening remarks with Ron Briggs. Please start. You have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Ron Briggs. For those you don't know, I've lived in this county since 1970. I grew up in Placerville, went to El Dorado High School. My kids went to Placerville Public Schools, and like their parents before them, went to El Dorado. We ran a small family farm for about 40 years, and in 2015, we moved down to El Dorado Hills. And, you know, I think having lived here now for 5 years, we should have moved down here in 2005. I thoroughly enjoy the unique character of Serrano and El Dorado Hills proper. This is a very important election. When I was elected in District 4 in 2007 and then re-elected in 2010, I promised my constituents I would keep them rural. And I would keep them rural and I'd fix their roads. And here in District 1, we have the same issues. We have a massive rezoning question of the golf course proposed by Parker Development, and it just needs to go away. And we need to build a community park and just say no to Mr. Parker. And we need to fix the roads. What's occurring here on Bass Lake with the amount of houses that are going up on a single lane road, all that does is create more houses on the same single lane road. And there's no program in place that I have heard that's funded to create 4 lanes on Bass Lake. So roads and keep us rural, and I will say no to the rezone. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hydal, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. And I'd like to start by thanking the League of Women Voters and you in particular for being the moderator for this session. This forum is very important to be able to get the word out and to understand the difference of the two candidates in running in this election. I believe strongly in the theme of what the League of Women Voters is all about, make democracy work. We all need to double down our efforts to make that happen. This should be a nonpartisan type of process, at least at the Board of Supervisors level. We should be looking out for the greater good of all of the public and working towards that end. My wife Eileen and I moved to El Dorado Hills in 1978. I was working at Aerojet in 1973, so I've been working there 5 years, and we'd lived in Folsom, we'd lived in Citrus Heights, and we decided with our family growing, El Dorado Hills is where we wanted to move to and raise our kids. So all 5 of my daughters went to the elementary schools here, the middle schools here. They all graduated from Oak Ridge High School. They all have 4-year degrees from major universities in the state of California. So I'm very proud of them and what they have done. And the League of Women Voters obviously is in part about empowering women. And I believe that strongly, having 5 daughters. I'm coached all the time on what that means. And so I try to abide by that and follow the rules. So with respect to my goals that I established in 2016 before the election, I established 3 major goals: a structurally balanced budget, preserve our open space, and provide more senior housing options. And I'm proud to say I've delivered on all 3 of those commitments. We have a structurally balanced budget and have for the last 3.5 years, going into the 4th year now. The preservation of open space, no open space has been lost in El Dorado Hills, and in fact, through the county, except for approvals of development that have been outside of El Dorado Hills. And then the other part is provide more senior housing, which we've delivered with memory care facilities, with apartment complexes. There's a lot of choices today in El Dorado Hills for seniors that weren't there before. And in fact, going back to preserving open space, I actually increased the open space with the Vineyards project approval, which increased additional 30 acres of open space in perpetuity.
Thank you. We'll move on to our community questions that were sent in by various voters across the county. And the first question will go to Mr. Briggs. Can you please describe what specific experience prepares you to assume responsibility for over 192,000 people and roughly $650 million budget?
So I've done it before. I did it for 8 years. I was elected in 2007 in District 4, which essentially is Green Valley north to Auburn, Folsom Lake to Lake Tahoe. It's not quite that, but you'll get the kind of the context of the area that it served. I was reelected in 2010 by District 4, and I'm the only supervisor in 35 years to have been ever reelected in District 4. And I came in 2007 in the Great Recession. That was my baptism in the fire. And we came in and we paid off the debt. And when I left the county, we had $40 million in cash. We had a 3-year, $14 million fully funded program to repair every single road in the county. We had labor peace. And so what prepares me is I've done it. And I've done it in hard times. And we're going to come into a COVID style way of living in the regarding the budget, and it could get very tight, and you need leadership that has done it before and knows how to navigate through these through the 17 bargaining units and the 2,000 employees, and I've done it before and I'll do it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hadal. And again, I'm happy to repeat the question. Please let me know if you need me to repeat it.
Well, I think it's good. I'm going to start with a little bit of my history. During the 42 years we lived in El Dorado Hills, for the last 40, basically, I've been involved with volunteering for many, many committees within El Dorado Hills, our El Dorado Hills Community Services District. I serve on the CC&R Advisory Committee for that. I was a founding member of our El Dorado Hills Area Planning Advisory Committee, which I'm proud to say is still operating today. I served as an elected director of the El Dorado Hills Fire Department for 33 years, understanding what our community was all about, what our fire service needs, and our emergency service needs. That's the medic units, the ambulance, if you want to call it, that provide those necessary services when people are most distressed, right? Whether it's an automobile accident, a fire, whatever. So I'm very proud of that history. So I've had a long-term engagement in volunteering my time. One of the other aspects is I was selected as the task force lead for the El Dorado Hills Community Services District 40-acre park. What we enjoy today with the Norm Rowett Pavilion and all of the sports fields and the teen center and everything that's there, I was the task force leader for a group of people of about a dozen, working with staff to try to find the best way to utilize the limited resources we have. In other words, the most bang for the buck. And I think we did a really good job in hindsight. We need to do more of those kinds of things. I would encourage the CSD to, again, use task force to get the community input as we go forward. Currently, I'm very involved in solving the problems that are up in Calathea Park, which is a CSD facility, and also Heaven. Those people that live up in Ridgeview know what that problem is, and we're making great strides in solving that problem. So I've been there, I've done that, I'm doing it today. Thank you.
Thank you. And for our next question, it's two parts. Of course, I'm sure you're used to getting the question about the executive golf course. So we want to know specifically what would be your ideal outcome to handle the situation with the executive golf course. And then to take it a bit further, please explain your view on what type of residential and commercial development should be taking place in the future. So Mr. Briggs, can you please start with the answer to the question?
Am I gonna answer all of them first?
Thank you. You're absolutely right. We will start with John on that one.
Very good. So the executive golf course obviously has a long history. The ideal solution for me is if the community services district were able to arrange a purchase of some portion of the 98-acre golf course. And we have to recognize when we talk about the Central El Dorado Hills specific plan project, it's 326 acres. The old golf course is 100 acres. So the project involves multiple pieces of land, not just the golf course, which is what most people recognize. But in an ideal situation, the CSD would purchase all 98 acres of that and develop it into recreational facilities, whether it be sports fields, a swim, aquatic center, a community center, whatever. It would have to meet their master plan provisions, but that would be the ideal solution. There are discussions going on right now between our CSD and Parker Development Company, and I'm hopeful, remain hopeful, that there will be some win-win agreement that's reached there where the public can recognize the benefit of additional recreational lands for our community, and Parker is able to accomplish what his objectives are with this community. But there will definitely be a reduction in the number of proposed residential houses if that moves forward. But one of the reasons I can't take a position on anything is because I am under, I think, an oath of office. And as an elected official, I shouldn't be commenting on projects ahead of time because it's called bias. And if it's determined that I have in the process of performing a biased situation where I come out and declare I don't like a given project, then I would have to recuse myself from the voting. And that's the last thing I want to do representing El Dorado Hills, is to have to recuse myself from the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Ron, are you ready to answer the question? And again, please let me repeat it if you need me to.
No, I got it. Well, I think leaders lead. And we don't listen. If we listen to the lawyers, we'll never do anything. And a risk-adverse position in a major development in one of the nicest areas in the county is not the way to lead. So how many houses? None. What should we do? Take all 390 and put them into a park. Wouldn't that be super cool? You know, Parker doesn't have a right to come in and just push houses and then come along and ask us for more. I'm sorry, I can't think of the word, but the golf course and the areas around it, I think the people in El Dorado Hills would just like to see it stay the way it is. And that's open and green. We have plenty of room on the Latrobe side to grow. We don't need to grow into that and become another Santa Ana or Santa Cruz or Orange County, because candidly, that's where it's headed. And I believe most people who moved here understand that this is what they're trying to get away from, and they need a leader that's going to protect them from the overdevelopment that they try to escape from.
Thank you. Okay, and for our next question, we're going to go reverse order again. So Ron, you're going to start with this question. And the question from a voter asks, what will you do to improve the wildfire safety of the district and of El Dorado County? And can you contribute at all to improvements in the homeowners insurance issues?
Well, in terms of wildfire, I think that's so integrated with the various fire districts. I think the one thing the county upon itself can do is fix the roads, improve them, widen them, fix the gutters. So if there has to be an evacuation, there is room on the roads for people to leave. The county's not in the firefighting business. That is left to the districts. The county can partner and help with money, but I don't think I think you can give the entire general fund over to the fire department and we still have the same problem. So we really have to look at the zoning, and we have to look at how many houses are going where, and be very, very careful as to where we put the next subdivision, and quit encroaching into the urban, the WUI, the interface between urban and rural. And it's misleading when they say on the Diamante or the Vineyards estate that open space was given, because there was only 15 houses there on 100 acres, and now there's 65 houses there and quote unquote open space. We had 15 houses on the same thing, on the same land, and it did not need to grow the way it did. And how do we stop fires? We quit putting density housing on the urban interface. Thank you. I'm over.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, young man.
John.
Yeah, so there are a lot of things we can do. We start with the Vegetation Management Ordinance of El Dorado County. Supervisor Veerkamp and I co-authored that Vegetation Management Ordinance. We put it through the process. We got it implemented, and we're in the first year of implementation. What that does is it requires defensible space for every property owner within El Dorado County, consistent with the state requirements. The state dictates that you should have defensible space of at least 100 feet. It varies a little bit if you've got a slope property, et cetera. And then we have a good neighbor clause in there that if your property abuts an adjacent property, and maybe they have some grass, wild growth, whatever it is, trees adjacent within 100 feet of your property, the good neighbor policy says they're obligated to clean that up, to give you 100 foot of defensible space even on their property. So that's where it starts with our Vegetation Management Ordinance. The second part is we've been working with the National Forest Service to try to determine what we can do to come up and help reduce the vegetation mass that's in our forest and clean out the old ref. One of the things we talked about is how do we use that slash material, the wood products and stuff, to create energy. So those discussions are going on. With respect to insurance, I've been working with our state insurance commissioner, Ricardo Lara. I've attended town hall meetings. I've gone down to his meetings and press conferences. He is working hard to try to get legislation passed to allow us to modify what the provisions are to require insurance companies basically to insure people when they have adequate defensible space and when they have adequate defense within their homes. That has been fought by the insurance industry, and that's where it lies today.
Thank you. And for our next question, John, you will be starting this question. And there were quite a few questions on this topic, and it's about the condition of our streets and roads and the traffic on our major roads. And as a county supervisor, what would you recommend be done to address these issues immediately?
Well, the first thing we have to do is get the correct value associated with our TIM fees, our traffic impact mitigation fees. Previous boards have not addressed that properly. They've underscoped what the cost of development is. They've underfunded our capital improvements for the road, so that's a part of it. The other part is the road maintenance, which is a process where we take funds delivered from the state of California associated with our gas taxes and maintain the roads. And the state of California has not provided the same level of funding that they did 10 years ago. In fact, it's dropped off substantially from what it was even 10 years ago. So unfortunately, when I became a board member, I ended up with a lot of deferred maintenance problems, and we're fighting those today to try to recover as much as possible. One of the things we've looked at in the current board is how do we better utilize the tribe funds that were set aside, and Ron understands the negotiations and stuff that happened there. But unfortunately, a lot of those tribe funds have been, prior to my getting on the board, have been used for other projects and not for just general road maintenance. So our current board is looking at how do we restore those to the appropriate category to get more road maintenance. But the real difficulty is the state of California is underfunding our road maintenance, and they'd really rather have you get out of your car and get in a bus or live really tight clustered areas. And that's not the right answer for rural counties and rural communities. So we're continuing to work that. I meet with our director of transportation on a regular basis. We talk about creative ideas. We talk about what kind of grants are coming available. How do we position ourselves to be most available to get those grants and make improvements from those?
Thank you. Ron, can you answer the question?
Would you please ask it again?
I'm happy to. This question is about roads and about traffic. What can we do immediately to help improve the roads and the traffic situation in the county?
Well, we can prioritize money. The tribe funds John was speaking toward, that was specifically negotiated to fix the roads. And it went to a particular project in Diamond Springs, but I'm pretty sure that project's close to being done. It might not be done, but it takes 3 people to say, we want to prioritize and fund our road fund, because our road fund, when I first got there, was a couple $1 million, and when we left, it was down to 0. Primarily had to do with the lumber, but it doesn't make a difference. Prioritize fixing the roads, and there are roads. Quit putting housing like we have here in Bass Lake on 2-lane roads. It's ridiculous and it's dangerous. We can go 100 feet, 200 feet on cleaning up the setbacks. It's not going to make a difference. You know, you get something like Paradise in here, it's not going to make a difference. The roads need to be fixed, and the board needs to prioritize them. And I forgot the second part of your question, so I'm being told to be quiet.
You answered most of it related to traffic.
I'll get that on the next one.
Okay, thank you. So for our next question, we're going to move topics. We're going to talk about homelessness. The problem has grown significantly in parts of El Dorado County. And would you commit to creating permanent homeless shelters so we can move people out of the homeless camps? Or do you have other ideas about how to resolve this problem here in our district? And this question starts with you, Ron.
So homelessness, like roads, you can put all the county money in it and you're never going to cure it. We have, in this county, we have a faith-based system to care for the homelessness. During the winter, they go 3 days from one church to another church to another church, and they take care of them. Our county, at least when I left it in January 2015, addressed the causes of homelessness: alcoholism, loss of work, family, and we had programs and outreaches to get to those people who needed help. What was the second part of that question, Elizabeth?
If you would be interested in creating permanent homeless shelters.
Thank you. So we went on my board went on a little bit of a buying spree to buy homes near the Walmart, et cetera, for transitional housing for people getting from homelessness and getting them into a position where they can have their own home. I'm not sure what happened to that program, but I do know we bought several houses, and we were, again, addressing the causes of homelessness. And would I create a permanent base for them? We tried that at Perks Court. They tried that at Hangtown Creek or Hangtown Haven, and neither worked, but I'd be open up to any suggestions.
Thank you, Ron. John, can you please answer the question?
Sure. I've been very involved with trying to help resolve the homeless problem. And Ron is right. You're never going to solve the whole total homeless situation, but there's an awful lot of good people who have fallen into homelessness, and what they need is a hand up and from society and get back on track. So I am a strong believer in the principle of housing first. If you're familiar with the homeless situation, housing has to be available. Once you do the triage, once you get them through the navigation center, to move them into more permanent housing where they can stabilize and get a job and go to work and do things that are going to be productive for society, have a purpose in life. So we formed in the county about 7 or 8 years ago a group called El Dorado Opportunity Knocks, and it's a continuum of care. And that term, continuum of care, is a statewide term that deals with how you bring a coalition of people together to deal with the homeless situation. So we have public agencies, the county, the city, a lot of our staff in the county. We have nonprofit organizations. We have the faith-based organization. We have a group of people now that's probably 50 people in strength trying to find solutions to homelessness. A recent addition to that was our El Dorado County Community Foundation is now helping sponsor and look for ways to house the homeless, particularly during the wintering shelter part of it. I've been a member of the nomadic shelter, which can no longer provide services because the faith-based people are elderly and they can't be exposed to COVID. Tahoe Homeless Coalition has done a great job. The Project Room Key, which is the state's project, we have 42 homeless and 2 hotels, a hotel in Pollock Pines and 1 in Tahoe. We're making a difference.
Thank you. Okay, the next question we'll start with John. And this question is about law enforcement. There's talk around the county about defunding law enforcement with different interpretations. What does defunding law enforcement mean to you, and would you support that?
I would personally not support any portion of defunding law enforcement. If anything, we need to increase the staffing at our law enforcement. One of the things that most people don't recognize is the Board of Supervisors established the budget for the sheriff, in particular, because that's the El Dorado County law enforcement. We also have CHP enforcement in the unincorporated areas of the county, but for the most part, our law enforcement is the sheriff. So the sheriff defines his needs, the Board of Supervisors funds the staffing for it, the sheriff implements it. Unfortunately, he's had a very difficult time meeting all the staffing requirements that we have. There's a lot of turnover in law enforcement right now. So the last thing anybody needs to talk about is defunding law enforcement. I support all the activities the sheriff has been putting forward to try to make sure that we do the best level of public safety implementation that we can. I recently went out to the new sheriff's facility, and we're very proud of that too. That's a 40-year mortgage we're paying back through USDA funds, but it's a beautiful facility. I would encourage anybody to visit our public safety facility off of Missouri Flat Road and Industrial. Because it is a fantastic place. We've given our sheriff a good place to operate. He's got all his staff co-located. It's powered by solar energy systems, which I was a major supporter of. We have to find ways to do things with less cost, and that's one way to do it, because solar and an application like what we have out there is going to basically cover all the electrical costs, plus deliver some additional power to other county utilities for county purposes.
Thank you. And Ron, can you talk to us about how you feel if you should defund law enforcement, what that means to you, and give us your opinion there?
Are you nuts? That's my answer.
Okay, fair enough.
No.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question. And Ron, you'll be starting with this question. And it is about the business park. Should there be a cap put on the future development of homes in the business park? And what steps would you take to bring in businesses to the business park to bring in much needed employment?
So I don't know if there's a cap, because I think in the business park it's kind of a case by case. There's an element within, I believe, Measure E that, sorry, I got a dog with a toy. Sorry. That creates the TIM fee to a position. So, an example, a couple wanted to open up a kid center, recreation sports, indoor soccer, t-ball, whatever, 100,000 square feet. The TIM fees alone for that particular use, because of Measure E, is I think she told me it was $120,000. I might be wrong, but it was super high, and it was disproportionate to the use of the land but because it was industrial space in the business park, Measure E caused a skyrocketed price of TIM fees. So I think we need to fill the business park. I think we need to attack the TIM fees, work with the Measure E people, and see if we can't have some type of settlement and put it on the ballot for people to vote for.
Thank you, Ron. John.
So let me kind of lead in with, no, I think it's premature to establish a cap of any kind in the business park. The business park is basically 1/3 developed after a period of over 30 years of trying to market it as R&D and industrial. It's just not accepting, the market's not here and has never really been here to bring in those kinds of businesses. So definitely there needs to be a change in the business park. The Business Park Owners Association did a study. They looked at what is the alternatives in terms of the use of the business park. And we're now seeing a lot of conceptual discussions relative to mixed use applications. So we'd have commercial and mixed use within the business park. And I'm very encouraged by that, because one of the things we haven't been able to achieve in our general plan, the county general plan, is the jobs to housing ratio. We need to be able to have affordable, and I'm not talking about Section 8 projects, we need to have an affordable level of housing for the workers who would work in the business park to be able to attract businesses to bring their business to El Dorado County and to El Dorado Hills and operate. So that's a very big part of it, that workforce housing. So the jobs to housing ratio is something that I feel very strongly for our youth. We need to be able to create jobs to keep our youth employed here. A lot of us recognize that our youth is in large measure is not college bound, but if they're given the proper training of a vocational training, and I'm implementing some ideas on how we might do that in El Dorado Hills as the training ground for employment in the business park. If we can attract more businesses in the business park with the part of the idea that's there and have the housing, now we can see some significant growth with the proper mitigation for roads and traffic and everything that are necessary to go with it.
Thank you. And for our next question, John, you will be starting off on this question. And the question submitted reads, are there any capital improvement projects you would be willing to see the county go into debt to finance?
Yeah.
Not go into debt to finance, because then you're talking about bond measures or something. And I recognize that, the vast majority of the people in El Dorado County cannot afford to pay one more penny in taxes. Unfortunately, every year we have things that go up, their user fees, et cetera. So to ask for some kind of a loan to fund capital improvement projects, I think is totally wrong. I want to shift the direction in terms of looking at what are our capital improvement projects that need to be done. That's what we call our CIP list. Put together the appropriate listing of those things, and that would be to serve not only the residential community, but also the commercial community, the industrial, the R&D community. So all parts of our neighborhoods and our community need to be addressed by that. But once you have that CIP, what that drives, based upon the forecast of timing and when the projects need to be put in, it drives whatever that traffic impact mitigation fee is. And so that TIM fee is what needs to be collected to pay for that infrastructure. Unfortunately, we have at least 20 years of inadequate TIM fees to pay for the infrastructure, and we get backlogged every year. So we're now trying to turn the corner on that. The board that was in place in 2016 took a lot of things out of the capital improvement program and put them into an unfunded column because they wanted to make sure the TIM fees weren't excessive in their mind. And I don't think that was the right answer from where I'm sitting. I mean, none of us like to pay more in fees, but the last thing we should do is ask the taxpayers, the voters, to contribute more for infrastructure that should be paying as the development goes along.
Thank you, John. Ron, can you answer?
Well, I'd like to see the park in El Dorado Hills, the Central El Dorado Hills Park, be developed. And, that took a partnership between the county and the CSD, because it's not going to be cheap to do it. I think that'd be just a substantial thing to go ask the voters if they're willing to put up extra money for such a park. Other than that, no, I'm not much of a big builder. The board a few years ago kind of really took all of our borrowing power when they built a $53 million sheriff's building. And not that he didn't need a new building, because he did, but that one, I think if the board would have toed the line, the cost of the sheriff's building could have been a lot lower, probably in half than what it was or what it is. And instead of being $53 million in debt, we'd be $24 million in debt, now 22. So recreation is a place I'd look for. Certainly would not want to go up and improve more interchanges or roads where it's going to just add capacity to the roads so we can have more houses to add more capacity. Recreation.
Thank you. And Ron, you'll be answering this question first. And this one is related to the COVID restrictions. First of all, do you agree with the COVID restrictions that were placed on us by the state and by the county health officer? And what type of financial impact will there be from these restrictions on local residents and our budget?
Well, the budget remains to be seen. So I have no clue what the budget numbers are. What I understand is they're coming in not as bad as they thought. Do I agree with it? Yeah, but I have a little bit of a different take on COVID. And my wife has lupus, so anything that she grabs out of COVID could really throw her in the hospital. So I like the masks. I think we've done a good job as a county. I don't think we should call the state offices to put the Apple Cafe out of business and get the CHP to enforce it. When the sheriff said he wasn't going to enforce it, the county made a phone call, a certain supervisor, and got the state up there to close it down. We should not be closing down businesses. We should be working with them. We should be looking to help them, not fine them $500 a day, but looking for ways that we can work with people. And some people in this county can be really obstinate. I mean, we live in El Dorado County. So the government should always look to help people who need help, work with people who don't really want to be worked with. But the last thing we need to do is have a heavy-handed government that puts people out of business.
Thank you, Ron. John.
Yeah, so at first when the COVID epidemic started and the governor came down with emergency orders and stuff, I think a lot of us were trying to determine what's the science behind this, what's the data telling us, how severe is this really, because we really didn't have an appreciation for what it was. And now that we've had a number of months of having to live with COVID, my personal opinion is the governor needs to start turning over the authority and responsibility, at least in rural counties, to the county board of supervisors and the public health officer to manage their particular system, because local level control is the best you can have. When the state is dictating things for all counties equally, you know it's going to shortchange our county. Our county's economics is driven very much by tourism, by vacationers, by people coming to our wineries, for people coming to Apple Hill. And with this pandemic, it's diminishing those numbers. And so that's tragedy. I want to see, whatever we go with this, that we maintain as much open business as possible. The board got creative. We did an ordinance that says restaurants can open up outdoors because that was consistent with what the governor allowed. So no longer do you require a permit to open outdoors and spread out into the street, because we wanted to make sure restaurants could maximize the number of people using their services and stuff. So that was a big part of it. Relative to financial impact, our budget, we just passed our budget. So I'm not sure why Ron doesn't understand what's in our budget, but we have seen net results with, there's a reduction of like 4% in sales tax compared to the same period last year. And the property taxes are staying about the same. So for right now, we're doing pretty good. And the property tax base is the important part for El Dorado County to function.
Thank you. Okay, for this next question, John, you will be the first to answer. And this voter wrote in and asked, what is something that the county is doing really well?
Okay, so one of the things I think the county is doing really well is our culture change that's happening within our organization. We have an outstanding CAO in Don Ashton. He is a tremendously talented individual. He communicates extremely well. He follows on things very quickly. He is one of the major strengths of why El Dorado County is going through a transformation and becoming a different culture than what it was before. The other part of that is hiring well-qualified people to the key positions who have a dedication and a motivation to do things differently than what we've done at the county. Unfortunately, we haven't at the county looked at private sector examples, best practices, and implemented those very much. So we seem to have the same kind of routine. And through the selection of people where the board has an input on who we select for the position, we've been able to strengthen a number of those. We have a new director of transportation. We have a new director of planning and building. We have a new director of IT. All of those positions, we have a new county registrar, voters. All of those positions are changing the culture and moving us more to be more similar to private industry and use of best practices. We're now starting to establish metrics. We're using dashboards, all things that I learned in my career and I want to give to the county in terms of helping improve our internal processes. One of the things, I have a Six Sigma black belt, which is a statistical accreditation and studies relative to how we optimize process. And I'm also what they call a lean practitioner. I'm proud to say 2 of our county planning and building people are going through a lean Six Sigma training as we speak. And they're going to come out with those same kinds of tools and resources I've experienced.
Thank you, John. Ron, what do you think the county is doing really well?
Well, I like our sheriff and I like our district attorney. I'm more on the negative side of what we aren't doing and can be doing. And that's not the question. So I'll just leave it at that. I like what the sheriff's doing and I like what the district attorney is doing. The law enforcement in this county has always been fair and hard-nosed, but fair. And I support both of them.
Thank you. And for this next question, Ron, you will be answering first. And this is about our county pay scales. They seem to fall well below of other similar counties, and that impacts the level and quality of service to the public, morale, and the ability to retain talented workers. If you are elected, will you commit to paying comparable and fair wages?
Sure. We did it twice in my day, and it's just a revolving door. And so Placer County pays an extra $10, or Sacramento does, and all of a sudden we start losing social workers, or we start losing policemen. And then the unions come up and say, gee, we can't deliver the service because we're down 20% and we've got a 30% or 40% turnover. So it's always difficult to keep the unions happy. And I have a very good relationships with all the unions. But you can go broke trying to keep them happy. So yes, you got to stay competitive, but you also have to mind the taxpayer's purse.
Thank you. John, can you please answer?
Yes, certainly. The county did a study 2.5 years ago, approximately, to determine what the comparable payment for various people in given positions was. And it was basically to try to determine what the median salary payment for a given role that somebody has across, I think it was 12 different counties we started looking at. And we've made some changes in those and what we're looking at today. But our initial goal was to get everybody within El Dorado County up to the point that they were no further than 10% below that median value for these comp counties. We've been successful for the most part in doing that. The few outlying ones, the ones that we're still in the contract negotiations that haven't settled, we're now stepping that up. We're looking at a goal of trying to get most of the unions involved and employees up to an 8% below median. But those have to be done through negotiations, and there's a lot of other things other than just pure salary. It's the benefits package and some of those things that have to be considered and put into it. But the biggest obligation, based upon past supervisors who encumbered the voters of this county, is the CalPERS, the retirement benefits program. We have unfunded liabilities that increase dramatically every year. The county tries to put away funds to offset some of that, and it continues to grow and grow because of privileges that were granted many, many years ago. And so now we're trying to overcome those and get back to it. We don't have an infinite amount of budget. We have a huge amount of deferred or backlog maintenance on our buildings and our facilities that needs to be done. So you can't just give more money to employees without trying to balance the need for facilities that they're going to work in. So that's the dilemma. There isn't a plentiful amount of money to do these things. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and we have time just to do a quick time check for probably 2 more questions or so. We'll see how long it takes to get through these. And the next question will start with you, John, and that is, Oak Ridge High School is overcrowded. What are the plans to alleviate that overcrowding and enhance the school district?
Okay, school districts operate totally separate, distinctly separate from county government. Our county board of supervisors and staff work very closely with the El Dorado County Office of Education, which is kind of the central focus for how the school systems work. And then there's a multitude of different school districts. So when you talk about the El Dorado Union High School District, the county is a supporter of what happens there, but it's really their board of trustees that determine the outcome of where new schools are built, the redistribution of students and all that. So that's where it falls. My personal opinion is that we need to bite the bullet and build a new high school in El Dorado Hills. The high school district owns property down on Latrobe Road, south of the business park. It's a large piece of property. The CSD has been working with them to maybe initiate co-management of some recreational facilities to start out with. But my ideal scenario would be that we build a brand new high school suitable for housing all of the students in the El Dorado Hills area that would want to go there, and maybe even some of the Cameron Park students that want to go there, you know, our adjacent communities, and that we take the old Oak Ridge High School and redefine that, repurpose it to be a vocational training center. This is where we would do the training of our youth to fill the jobs they're going to bring into the business park, so that we end up with a robust economy, we end up employing people, and we end up solving as well the traffic problems along with that, which means there has to be mitigations in place. But that would be the ultimate solution in my opinion. But again, it's the school board that decides.
Thank you. Ron?
Well, I've always worked well with the schools. John's correct. They make the decisions as to where, how many schools get built and where they get built. And I think the county, you know, other than working with them on roads, ingress and egress, I'm not altogether sure where we would be, what our position in any partnership would be. The only thing that we could potentially do is stop building houses that impact Oak Ridge and impact the other existing schools, and start pushing the housing to where there are already schools that can take in new students. Building new schools is neat and it's cool, but you know, there's upkeep as people, and I just think we need to stop building houses and flooding the existing schools, and be a partner with the schools only in the sense of giving them an attaboy, because the county is not in the school business.
Thank you. And for our next question, Ron, you will start with this question. And the El Dorado County senior programs have been a lifesaver this past year, delivering meals and vital services. Can you share your thoughts on the county's role in meeting the current and future needs of the growing population of seniors?
Sure. One of the best thing I did in the 8 years spent on that board for me was leading the Elder Protection Unit and working with the senior programs, working with the Meals on Wheels, working with the public guardian, working with senior legal, working with the DA, and protecting our seniors. And that also went into the Child Protective Services venue. So for me, you know, I can sit there for hours at that dais and listen to people who don't want houses built in their backyard, and it all really goes away when I go over to work with the social services people and improve their programs, because to me that's where the payday is for myself. So, thank you.
Thank you. Don?
Yeah, so relative to the senior programs, I've been very active in working with our Commission on Aging. That's a group of volunteers that work across El Dorado County to address and understand the issues that seniors are having, and trying to provide necessary services, and working with our County Health and Human Services to make sure that those facilities are available, that help is given. One of the key things that we have that distinguishes us in El Dorado County is our senior legal services, which provides the ability for seniors to come in and get consultations of legal matters. You can establish a trust, all of those kinds of things. That was challenged a couple of years ago by the need to look at budget reductions, and I fought hard to keep those senior legal services in place. Being a senior myself, I respect and understand the needs of seniors a little bit better than maybe some people do. And so that was a very necessary service, and we were able to retain that. The other key thing is senior housing. One of the statistics that really boggles my mind is the two most prevalent growth areas for homelessness is seniors, and this is females over 65 years of age, and youth between the ages of 18 and 25. And the seniors are senior women are basically women who are living alone. They have Social Security income. They can't pay the costs anymore of their mobile home park, whatever. They become homeless people. We have to provide senior housing for those good people who need to have an affordable place to live. So that's part of the need in that regard. I've been working with Betty January to try to establish a new senior center in El Dorado Hills, and I think we're going to be successful in the long run of getting that done. So that's encouraging.
Thank you. And we have time for one more question before we move to closing statements. So for our final question, we will start with John. And I'm going to go back to something we talked about a little bit, but we'd like some more specific information from you. And that is about your vision for the development of this district. What is your vision? What would be your priorities in that vision? And what would it look like now and in the future? So John, you would start first.
Yeah, certainly. So one of the things that I believe we have to work with is our El Dorado County General Plan. The General Plan was approved in 2004. The voters basically came to the agreement that it was probably the best we could do. Nobody ended up happy, but it establishes the desired growth across the county. It represents where growth will occur in community regions like El Dorado Hills, where they would occur in rural regions. So that's the template for growth. It's also the template for our affordable housing programs, which again are not just the very low or low income people. It's also moderate income housing that we're looking at within affordable housing. So there's multiple categories. But that's the basis of where I start is what's in our general plan. And that's the jobs to housing ratio. All of those things are what I believe we need to follow on the Board of Supervisors relative to the proposed development. One of the biggest changes that's happened here recently is mixed use proposals. The county hasn't had a lot of experience with mixed use projects. So we're now starting to try to define the policies associated with mixed use to make sure that we don't miss that opportunity where it's appropriate to fit within one of our communities, because we know there's a continuing push from the state with respect to annual numbers for their housing allocations and what the county is supposed to provide in terms of an inventory of housing that can be built. But we got to get beyond just having an inventory. We have to look seriously at where do we build that housing and how do we facilitate it to make sure that we handle the need for the housing and affordable housing for workforce and seniors.
Thank you, John. Ron.
Well, I think the people in El Dorado Hills are very wary of having new houses built north of Highway 50 and Green Valley in that corridor. I think that they like the characteristics that we currently have. So when we talk about new housing, we have a lot of land in the Latrobe area, south of Highway 50, where we can place all these good things John just talked about, mixed use, low-cost housing, etc. I think we need to protect people's open space, because shifting open space like you would a three-card Monte game has to stop. And that comes with the board saying no. So yes, you grow the general plan, but no, you don't give the general plan amendments. And general plan amendments basically, so like what's being proposed in the rezone of the park, they're asking for things that are not within the general plan. And the board needs to say no, because once they start saying no to the general plan amendments, those projects will go away or be substantially cut down. Recreation on the north of 50 and housing on the south of 50.
Thank you very much. And now we are going to begin with our closing statements. And Andrew, you will let them know when they reach their time. And we're going to start closing statements with John.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure to serve the voters of El Dorado Hills for the last almost 4 years. I would like to continue for another 4 years. I think we've put the Board of Supervisors and the county on a course of really doing some good things in the near future, and I'd like to continue in that vein. One of the things that I advertise on my signs is action, not politics. I'm not a politician. I'm a public servant, and that's been demonstrated by my many years of volunteer service to many, many organizations. So I think that's an important part. I also have very strong endorsements of a bipartisan nature, across political lines. One of my strengths in my endorsements is Assemblyman Kevin Kiley. I have John McGinnis, former sheriff of Sacramento County, as an endorsement. I have all the board members of the fire department locally. I have 3 of the CSD board members who've endorsed me. I have the city of Folsom's mayor who's endorsed me. So people know what I have been able to accomplish, and they want to see it continue. So we need to get past the rhetoric. We need to get past all the stuff that's put out that's falsehoods. We need to look at the history of what's been accomplished, and we need to continue on the course. So please vote for John Heidel.
Thank you, John. Ron, your closing remarks.
Well, I was 8 years in the Board of Supervisors ending January of 2015. I know how to operate, and I know how to administer 2,000 people and $700 million budget. I believe sorry, the dog wants out. I believe what District 1 wants is they want certainty that somebody's going to stand up to Parker and say no, and somebody's going to protect the open space and not sell it for $1 million and sell open space where it shouldn't be. Somebody just has to be straight with the voters. So you'll always get an honest answer from me. I mean what I say. I mean I keep it rural. I mean no for the rezone. And I'd appreciate your vote because thank you.
Thank you to both of you for joining our candidates forum tonight. Just as a reminder, this has been brought to you by the League of Women Voters of El Dorado County, and it's our 100th birthday. What a great time to join the League. To find out more about the League of Women Voters, you can go to lwveldorado.org. In addition, after this forum, you can find information about our candidates in our nonpartisan voter guide online at votersedge.org. Also, lastly, as a reminder, this video will be shown on YouTube, and it must be shown in its entirety and not edited. Again, thank you so much to both of our candidates for a very civil and informative discussion. We appreciate your time. Don't forget to vote on November 3rd.